So every once in a while I get a question about headstand leg lifts as an exercise and how useful it is for developing press handstands. So I want to talk a little bit today about how it's not useful for developing a press handstand, but there is a way to modify it to make it more useful. So if you're not familiar with the exercise, it's really simple. You go up in a headstand like this, and then you can lift your legs up and down. You can do straddle, you can do tuck, whatever. So it's a useful exercise by all means because it'll help with control, it'll help develop the proprioception of understanding where your legs are upside down. So I'm not saying it's not useful, but if you're trying to specifically develop a press handstand, this is too easy. And the reason is because of the leverage. So the hips are going to be a lot lower and we don't have to push through straight arms. The base of support is a lot bigger. So essentially this exercise kind of mimics what you're going to do in the hips and the lower back, but not fully. It's like saying you're going to splash around in the kiddie pool, and is that a good preparation for swimming in the deep end? Well, you're going to know what it feels like to get your feet wet, so it's not a bad thing, but it's not going to teach you how to swim. So if you're trying to do these expecting it to help drastically in your press handstand attempts, you're probably not going to see a lot of benefit. So even though in its standard original form, the headstand leg lift may not be that useful for developing the press handstand, we can make a couple modifications that will make it more realistic and it will feel closer to the real thing. Still not the real thing. You're not going to get a press handstand without doing some version of a press handstand, but it's a really good assistance exercise that becomes a closer simulation of what the real thing feels like, and then we can isolate and identify certain aspects like the lower back curl, like the hip flexion extension. So the first thing we're going to do is build a stack. This is just a bunch of dumbbells and a pillow, so you can build whatever you want. But the idea is if I were doing a handstand here, right, I want my head to be in a similar place as it would be. I mean, higher is more difficult, of course, but at the very least, try to put your head at a similar height of where it would be if you're doing a handstand. So now the position of the hip and the leverage and where the legs start from are going to be the same. So now you're working the actual full range of the press handstand. So build something better than this. This is just what I had laying around, but you can figure out some mats, you can figure out something to stack. Just make sure it's sturdy, right? Test it before you try to do too much crazy stuff on it. So now we're going to do our press handstand here, and it's still, of course, much easier than a press handstand, but now the range of motion and the positioning of the hips is going to be a lot more similar. It's actually now mimicking it, other than the push that I have to do in the shoulders to maintain my position. This is actually now, if you only look at my hips, whoopa, so that's why you want to build something sturdy. So if you only look at my hips, it's very similar to what I would be doing in a press handstand. And I can do the same thing piked, like that, lift, come down. So that's one modification that you can make to more closely resemble the final movement. And then a second modification you can make, and once you start doing it with this modification, to me it feels, again, it's still not a press, you still have to do it, but what's happening within the lower back and the hip and the legs now starts to feel very similar. So it's a way to isolate that specific portion of the press as a means of assistance work. So I'm using a pink dumbbell because I'm very secure in my masculinity, but basically we're just going to add weight to the legs. If you want to do straddle, you're going to have to use ankle weights, of course. This is just something I had laying around. So I'm going to do the pike version. This is 3 pounds. The weight itself doesn't have to be heavy because, especially if you have straight legs, it's going to be far away from your body. So the leverage of the weight is going to be more than enough. You don't have to go beyond, I would say, 5 pounds, 2 kilos, whatever. So I'm going to get into position. Try not to fall this time. Lift. So now what's happening in my lower back and in my hamstrings and with how I position the hips is now actually very close to the real press handstand. So something to play with. It's a nice modification you can make of a drill that's initially too easy, that now it's challenging enough that it can still have some kind of effect and benefit towards the goal that you're aiming for. So final disclaimer, don't do only these and expect it to get you a press handstand. This is a good exercise, it's a good modification on a nice exercise, but it's still not a press handstand because we're forgetting the most important element, and that's the push in the shoulders. As I mentioned a couple times, it's a way to isolate the movement of the legs and the hips to build better control. So play around with this, include it as assistance work. If you can already do the regular headstand leg lifts and it's too easy, give it a try. If you're working on press handstand and you have trouble with the articulation of the spine or getting enough hip compression, this is something that can help with that. It can help to isolate and develop that, but this is assistance work, so it's not a primary press handstand exercise as I would classify it. That being said, I hope it's useful. If you do find it useful, let me know. Give it a try. Let me know how it feels. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know what else you'd like to see on this channel, and check out the links below for some ways to support me through my online coaching, through my online training group, my handstand ebook, whatever. Lots of options in the links below. Let me know what else you'd like to see on this channel, and I'll see you next time.